Deadpool and Wolverine is out now, and since both these heroes have amazing healing factors, which leads to some awesome fights, well today let's try and answer the ultimate question. Which one actually has the better, more powerful healing factor? Wolverine or Deadpool? Let's get into it. Now just starting out, let's make one thing clear. Both of these guys have incredible healing factors. They both come back from death itself over and over again. It's also very clear that the primary driving force behind how their healing factors work is the plot, not necessarily their healing factors themselves. The rate at which they can heal is never really consistent. It's actually kinda all over the place. Like sometimes, Wolverine is able to heal from an injury in just a few minutes, while a few years ago, that same injury forced him to spend a whole day or more recovering from it. And both of them have done some absolutely insane things with their healing factors. For Wolverine, well, his skeleton is covered entirely in adamantium, which means that he literally can't be cut or torn apart. And trust me, plenty of people have tried. It also greatly increases his durability too. Like Wolverine's been kicked clean around the world and been just fine. He's taken all sorts of punches and attacks from some of the strongest beings on Earth, ranging from Hulk to Thor to plenty more, and he's been just fine. He can take bullets absolutely no problem. It really doesn't even faze him. He's able to keep on fighting while being all stabbed up or turned into a pincushion. It doesn't really do much. He's kept on fighting after having his heart destroyed on multiple occasions. He can heal and come back from literal disintegration. The guy's even survived nuclear bombs several times over. Wolverine is dang near impossible to put down. Might be injured, but Logan is always going to heal from it, and he's always going to come back, no matter what. The exact same thing applies to Deadpool. Now it's kinda hard to say if Deadpool actually has superhuman durability. Basically, any attack that's gonna injure you will probably injure him to some degree. But it legit doesn't matter, because his healing factor is one of the best in comics. He can pretty much instantly heal from any attack that comes his way. He's able to regenerate missing limbs or organs or any part of his body, and I don't really have to go into any specific examples because there are just too many to count. This is what Deadpool does. He's able to even heal himself from what looks like just a puddle on the ground. He can reattach his body parts, even his head, all in order to keep on going and keep on fighting. And Deadpool has regularly been able to come back from death itself. Attacks that definitely should have killed him. Well, they just don't. He'll heal from it and heal from it again and again and again. He's basically unstoppable. Really just comes down to not a matter of if Deadpool is going to recover from the attack, but just how long it's going to take him to heal and recover from the attack. Both are able to regrow limbs, and we've seen that happen before. Of course, Deadpool does this a whole lot more often because he doesn't have an adamantium skeleton helping him out, making it basically impossible to lose limbs in the first place. But it has happened a few times before, and Wolverine always seems to return. Basically, they're both just able to do absolutely amazing things. Wolverine has survived having adamantium laced all over his skeleton, having all that adamantium forcibly removed by Magneto, then survived having it put back on all over again. He's survived nukes several times over. He survived basically on the surface of the sun with his healing factor kicking into overdrive to keep him going. He survived an explosion from nitro at point blank ground zero, and every bit of him was incinerated. He was just a skeleton. That's all that remained, just an adamantium skeleton. Logan was back up in just a few panels. There was even one issue when Wolverine regenerated himself from just a single drop of blood. Basically, you're looking at one of the best healing factors in not just Marvel, but in all of comics. Problem is, none of this puts him definitively over Deadpool. because Deadpool is basically able to do all the same stuff and make it look easy. Deadpool was returned from being frozen in ice and then shattered into a million different pieces. He came back just a short while later. One time, Punisher got a little pissy and went after Deadpool, cutting him up into a bunch of different pieces and then storing all those pieces in different vibranium containers. Deadpool still came back. He's come back from just being a puddle on the ground. He's been hit with a lightning bolt by Thor and turned into a pile of ash, still came back, and he's even healed himself and his mind after staring into a literal hole in reality and starting to become undone. He's healed himself not just from a drop of blood, but a single atom, and he's done it all several times over. Basically, both of these guys are really evenly matched and can basically return from just about anything. So you're kinda having a nitpick here, but I think it comes down to Wolverine's adamantium and Deadpool's cancer. Wolverine wasn't born with an adamantium skeleton. It's not a natural part of his body. And so his body and his healing factor is constantly having to fight against this foreign element in the body. It's literally a key plot point in Logan. Wolverine is being slowly dosed with heavy metal poisoning from a skeleton, and it's taxing on his healing factor. Now, Wolverine in the comics isn't likely to die from this like he did in the movies, but it does kinda hamper his healing factor, because at least some part of his healing factor has to be devoted to fighting back the adamantium poisoning. If Wolverine didn't have adamantium, well then his healing factor would be more powerful. And you would think the same would apply to Deadpool and his cancer, but you'd be wrong. See, when Deadpool entered into Weapon X, he already had cancer all over his body. And so when they gave him a version of Wolverine's healing factor, well, they factored that in and built it around Deadpool's cancer. Basically, here's how it works and the difference between the two characters. Logan's body is constantly repairing itself after he gets hurt. It's always working to keep Logan healthy and in peak physical condition. All the dead or injured cells in his body are replaced with healthy living cells just as fast as they can die. But for Deadpool, well, he's not a mutant, he's a mutate, which is a human who became a mutant through experimentation. And Deadpool had stage 4 cancer all over his body before he ever got powers or a healing factor. So all that cancer is actually baked into the equation from the get-go. And while his healing factor is based upon Wolverine's mutant powers, all of Deadpool's cells are cancerous, which means that Deadpool's body is actually replacing dead cells with dying cells, which then themselves are being replaced with other dying cells in a never-ending cycle. It's a little confusing, but look at this example. One time the Skrulls were trying to invade Earth and they stole Deadpool's DNA because they figured that if they could give Deadpool's healing factor to all their Super Skrulls, well then of course they would be unstoppable. No one would stand in their way. However, that isn't really how it played out. Instead, when it was all said and done, the Super Skrulls actually began growing massive tumors all over their bodies until they were nothing more than giant cancer blobs and exploded. And Deadpool knew this was gonna happen. Weapon X had specifically made his healing factor for Deadpool and Deadpool only. It was designed to constantly replace all the dying cancer cells. But if you put this same healing factor into anyone else, well then their body would produce too many replacement cells, and all these new cells would be made faster than their old cells would die, then they would end up exploding, which is exactly what happened. And again, Deadpool's new cells that he makes with his healing factor aren't healthy cells that are then taken over by the cancer that's constantly eating away at his body. Each new cell that Deadpool creates with his healing factor is still cancerous too. So when Deadpool got shot with a super advanced Wakandan weapon that shoots out star cells, well, he didn't heal from it and his arm didn't grow back. And it's not necessarily because those star cells were counteracting his healing factor, but it was actually healing his cancer cells. And since its healing factor is tied to those same cancer cells, it's actually what turned off Deadpool's healing factor. It's why Green Goblin actually came up with a cure for cancer as a way to kill Deadpool. So, what's all this mean? Well, since Deadpool is literally constantly dying to some degree, it means that his healing factor is working at a way faster rate than what should be possible. It's also working much faster than Wolverine's too. And it's why Deadpool is able to exist as just a severed head, or how when you cut off one of his arms, well, that arm can actually grow into a whole new Deadpool. Basically, Deadpool is constantly dying, which means that he's actually a whole lot harder to kill. For as good as Wolverine's healing factor is, he can still be killed, and his healing factor can be overcome. It's happened a few times already. It also means that Deadpool's healing factor will keep on going a whole lot longer than Wolverine's. Logan has already lived an incredibly long life, and he'll continue to live for probably hundreds of years into the future. But over time, his body is only going to produce healthy cells for so long, and the number of healthy cells is going to decrease as he gets older. Because of how Deadpool's healing factor works, well, he doesn't have to worry about that happening to him, basically making him immortal. So who's got the better healing factor? Well, it's Deadpool. Both of them could survive just about anything that you throw at them, but just based upon how their healing factors work, well, you have to give a slight edge to Deadpool. He's got the better healing factor and one of the best healing factors in comics. But what do y'all think? Sound off in the comments down below. I know you're gonna have thoughts and feelings on this one for sure. If you stuck around this long and made it to the end of the video, that's amazing. Thank you so much for watching and for supporting us. And if you want to go subscribe, well, go subscribe. You're going to see more videos like this one every single week. I'll see y'all then. I'll see y'all next time.